So here, what you have is once the glacier reaches a certain point, it breaks apart, and that's called calving. And that calving is what creates icebergs. And remember, icebergs, however much you see of an iceberg, the biggest portion of the iceberg is submerged underneath the water. So about 80% of the iceberg is actually submerged underneath the water. So here we're still talking about how ice sheets move. And so let's go ahead and continue. So I mentioned before that you have terrain here. I'll draw it horizontally. So let's say that this is your terrain, and the terrain has rubble. And let's see what happens when an ice sheet passes over it. So as the ice sheet, and you'll also have loose rocks here. So there's loose rocks there. So as the ice sheet passes over this region with these loose rocks, what happens again is that at the bottom, there's a lot of pressure pressing down at the bottom of the glacier, and that causes the ice to melt. So you have water that's moving around these pieces of rubble. And when that water freezes, what that does is that the water freezes those rocks into the glacier. So what you wind up having then is that the glacier picks up sediment. So as time goes by, the glacier freezes in those same pieces of rubble, and now those rubble become teeth at the bottom, or become stuck into the glacier. So this process is called plucking. So plucking means that the glacier picks up or plucks up loose pieces of rubble and into itself. So the glacier plucks or picks up loose pieces of rubble, boulder size, loose pieces, so we'll say boulders. It's probably a better way to get an idea. So it picks up boulders and carries them along. And so this is the major way that glaciers pick up sediment. So you may receive a question like this: what is the main way that glaciers pick up sediment? So the major way that glaciers pick up sediment is through this same process of plucking. So now, once the glacier has picked up all those sediment, it's as if the glacier has teeth at its base now, because what you have is your chunk of ice, but now with a bunch of boulders at the bottom. And now this big chunk of ice is moving from place to place. It's sliding around. So now this whole thing can move back and forth here. So what ends up happening is that the glacier then is going to scrape the ground beneath it. And the scraping, so as the glacier passes by, it's going to leave scrape marks, and that process is called abrasion. So if you notice, the plucking is highlighted in orange, so that means you're going to see that on a test, but abrasion is highlighted in blue, which means you'll just see that on the homework assignments. So abrasion then, what this means is that the glacier and the sediment at its base scrape the ground beneath it. So the glacier and its sediment, or the boulders at its base, and the boulders at its base scrape the ground beneath it. And you can see from this picture here what's happening. So this glacier is passing by. It's picked up a whole bunch of boulders, and as it passes over this region, it's going to scrape through this region. And this is what you see here, these scrape marks. And you see how it's to the point where it even polishes the surface beneath.